National governments can print money to ease the impact of the financial and economic crisis. But that's not an option for Europe's 300,000 local councils. For many of them, the recession has brought hard challenges, difficult choices and shrinking budgets. Few parts of Europe have been immune from the effects of the crisis. The Council of Europe, with its 47 member states, therefore provides an ideal platform for local authorities to learn from each other's responses to the recession.
What's going to happen is now an adjustment to the size of the state in many countries, which is pretty historic. It's an unusual thing that's going on. And so when something as unusual that is taking place, and where there are likely to be stresses and strains on the democratic system, I think what the Council of Europe can do is to give a window from any one of its member countries into what's going on, not just in some of the others, but a more general assessment.
The Council of Europe's Centre of Expertise for Local Government Reform is leading efforts to help local governments adjust to austerity. It recently organised a high-level conference of experts to assess the situation across Europe and to provide guidance for a forthcoming ministerial meeting.
Well, the Council of Europe is a very important forum for debate of issues at a very general level that affects us all. I mean, we're in Europe, and my experience in other countries is that there may be different institutional settings, but the problems are more or less the same. We're facing similar constraints.
Few countries have been hit harder by the recession than Iceland. The scale of the country's economic difficulties proved almost overwhelming. Virtually overnight, the City Council of Reykjavik had to completely rethink its entire way of operating.
We asked ourselves every question that has to be asked within local governments. How can we do things differently? Is there something we're doing that we could leave for a couple of years? We sought after the experience of our employees. We asked our employees, and they more or less took part in giving us new ideas of how we could cut costs. Of course, we lowered our costs regarding wages, and we basically cut wherever you can cut.
The Council of Europe is the continent's guardian of human rights, including social rights such as adequate housing, minimum labour standards and access to services. But as the conference heard, the recession should not be an excuse for governments to erode those rights in the name of financial discipline.
We must aim at financial and social stability in parallel. The burdens must be shared in a fair manner. The weakest and the most vulnerable must be protected during this period. There is a tendency that the less wealthy will be made to suffer most, in particular the elderly, persons with disabilities, homeless people, and migrants. Women and children, many of them, are too deeply affected by the crisis.
Cuts are hard to avoid in the current economic climate, but there are other options. The conference discussed innovations in e-services, more efficient methods of public procurement, outsourcing of non-essential services, and public-private partnerships. Participants agreed that the recession has in fact provided an opportunity to plan for the longer term, which is something local governments cannot afford to put off, given Europe's demographic challenge.
One of the issues that has arisen alongside the whole question of the financial and economic crisis is how resources are allocated intergenerationally, because in all European countries we either have rapidly aging populations or we also have declining populations. So the challenge going forward is how to assign financial resources in a way that doesn't take resources away from the younger generations.
The scale of the crisis across Europe is unprecedented, and many local authorities find themselves in uncharted territory. But the Council of Europe is giving them the tools they'll need to emerge stronger from the recession. It may be hard to believe now, but the Council of Europe sees light at the end of the tunnel.